In this series of video lectures, we will examine the role of government in the American economy. However, rather than just jumping to a discussion of the specific policies undertaken by government to regulate economic activity, we must begin by placing the American economic system in relative context. This is necessary because, in my experience, if we do not provide some relative context, students are left with the impression that government in this country intervenes in the economy to a much greater extent than it actually does. The truth is that the role of government in the American economy is minimal compared to the role of government in other countries' economies. This assertion may sound incredible to some. Indeed, I think that there are probably some audiences that, if I was to go before and make this assertion, might discount everything I say thereafter. Many Americans believe that government regulation of the economy is extensive. Small business owners, for example, are convinced that there is no aspect of their operations that government does not regulate. If you share this opinion, don't turn me off or tune me out at this point. Allow me to lay the groundwork for this assertion. It is critical to our understanding of the policies that government actually does undertake in the economic arena. Let's begin by establishing where the American economy fits in with respect to other countries' economies on this very fundamental question about the role of government. Economists tell us that there are several fundamental questions that any economy must confront. We shall discuss these questions momentarily. First, however, imagine that we can place any country's economy along a continuum, indicating the extent to which the answers to these fundamental questions are determined by either market forces or government planning. At the far right of the continuum, we have economies in which the fundamental questions are answered purely by market forces. We would call such systems laissez-faire economies, suggesting no government regulation of economic activity whatsoever. There are no literal, real-world examples of laissez-faire economies. It is an ideal type, though there are a few countries' economies that approach it, such as Singapore. At the far left of the continuum, we would have a purely centrally planned economy, systems in which government makes all economic determinations. This is also an ideal type, so we can offer no real-world examples. Even in the old Eastern European communist regimes, there was some minimal market activity, even if it was limited strictly to black markets for Western products like Levi jeans or cigarettes. So every real-world economy has some mix of market forces and government planning. The continuum is a simple device that allows us to determine the extent of market forces and government planning in a given country's economy relative to other countries' economies. If we begin on the right end of the continuum and move to the left, we are encountering countries with increasing government intervention in their economies. What is the extent of market forces or government planning in the American economy? To sort this out, let's discuss the three fundamental questions that all economies must confront. Number one, what goods and services will the economy produce? Number two, how will these goods and services be produced? And number three, for whom will these goods and services be produced? The first question that any economy must confront is, what goods and services will be produced? Why must an economy answer this question? Why can't an economy produce any good or service contemplated in whatever quantity imaginable? There are three inputs available to any economy that may be employed in the production of goods and services. First, labor. Labor is the human effort applied to the production of goods and services. Second, natural resources. Natural resources are the raw materials extracted from the natural world that are used in the production of goods and services. For example, oil is a natural resource used in the production of numerous goods, including gasoline and plastics. Third, capital. Capital refers to any good or service used in the production of other goods and services. So, for example, an oven in a bakery is capital because it is used to produce baked goods. A nail gun and a circular saw at a construction site are capital because they are used to produce a house. And a combine on a farm is capital because it is used to harvest grain. Because these input factors are in limited supply, An economy must determine what goods and services it will produce. What goods will the economy produce with its scarce resources? The labor that is used in the production of automobile repair services is labor that cannot be used in the production of national defense. The capital that is used in the production of accounting services is capital that cannot be used in the production of online college courses. The natural resources that are used to preserve a pristine mountain forest for tourism purposes are natural resources that cannot be used in the production of lumber. If the economy had unlimited labor, unlimited capital, and unlimited natural resources, choices would not have to be made. But scarcity is an unavoidable reality. If it is principally market forces that determine the answers to these questions, then we would place the economy on the right side of the continuum. If it is government that answers these questions for the most part, we would place it on the left side of the continuum. The second fundamental question that any economy must address is, how will these goods and services be produced? This question concerns the mix of inputs that will be employed in the production of goods and services. Will a particular good be produced using relatively more labor, relatively more capital, or relatively more natural resources? The production of certain goods is said to be labor-intensive, while others are said to be capital-intensive. Is wheat production in the United States labor-intensive or capital-intensive? Well, the American economy produces a lot of wheat, but few Americans employ their labor in wheat production. Wheat production in the United States is heavily mechanized. There is a lot of machinery employed in wheat production. It is capital-intensive. Some produce, such as grapes or perhaps lettuce, compared to wheat production certainly, employs relatively more labor. Why must decisions be made about how goods and services will be produced? Again, the fact of scarcity means that the economy cannot devote unlimited inputs to the production of all goods. How will the economy's labor supply, capital stock, and natural resources be most efficiently employed? Again, by using the continuum, we can assess the extent to which these determinations are made by either market forces or government planning. The third fundamental question that every economy must address is, for whom will these goods and services be produced? This is the allocative question. How does an economy determine who will get the goods and services that are produced by the economy's resources? In a market-oriented economy, the pricing system determines the answer to this question for most goods and services. In a centrally planned economy, government rations the good, presumably based on some concept of fairness or equity. Of course, in market-oriented economies, the pricing system is a rationing mechanism as well. The ability and willingness to pay the prevailing price for a good determines who gets it. The criterion in a market economy for rationing goods and services is not equity or fairness, however, it is efficiency. We will examine the efficiency criterion in more detail later. For now, it is enough to acknowledge that an economy must confront this decision. The extent to which the decision is made by market forces or government planning indicates where we should place the economy along this continuum. At this juncture, we should take a moment to elaborate what we mean by market forces. A market is a voluntary arrangement of trading for a good such that there are some people who will want to consume it, we call these people demanders, and others who are willing to meet that demand by supplying the good to market. We call these people suppliers. We can think of a market then as the interactions of demand and supply. A market-oriented economy suggests one in which most goods and services are produced and consumed in these voluntary arrangements. In a market economy, we speak of markets for specific goods and services, such as the market for orange juice, the market for personal computers, the market for diamonds, the market for refrigerators, etc.